You could get a consistent outcome doing complex things. And if you're missing an ingredient, you'd be like, well, what do we do with this? Oh. If you're a doctor, our buddy over here has got his doctorate degree, why do they call research? Did you have to invent the shit? Oh, no. You're just looking up the information that some smart person that lived before you. It's called research because the information's already there, but you just have to go internalize it for yourself, yeah? Is that fair? So you ain't got to go invent, new magical things that don't exist, man. You just got to take a look at some of the systems that are out there and think about the life that you want to live. And then we got to backwards engineer that to be like, well, if you want your Ferrari, I don't really give a shit about cars much. I have a nice car, but I'm not really a car guy. But if you want your Ferrari, if you want your whatever, so well, what would have to be necessary for that to be true? And then what would have to be necessary for that to be true? And you just got to backwards engineer that a bit. Now, being an overweight person, you can imagine I have a lust for food. And so I know a bit about cooking. I'm actually a pretty good cook. But, a lot of things in cooking, when something gets fucked up, it's not like it got fucked up at that moment. A lot of times something got fucked up 3 steps ago. Somebody failed to do something, 3 steps back there, but the problem didn't come to be obvious until a bit more time passed, And really, it's if you understand that, and you can not fuck up, if you can make a moderately complex dinner and not fuck that up, a lot of other things in life, they're not much more complicated than that. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I'm just saying, if you're the type of person that you had the discipline to run a 5-minute mile, imagine me trying to run a mile right now. I can go lift heavy shit, but, I could walk 4 miles in an hour or something, but I'm not running anywhere. If you had the discipline to do that, and just some of the common sense that has to happen in a kitchen, that when the error presents itself, that doesn't mean that that's when the error happened. Probably it happened 2, 3, 4 steps ago. You know what I'm saying? Does that not happen all the time?
Yeah, you get mad for it because you could prevent it.
Yeah, and you should be appropriately mad that you be God damn it. And you're going to keep making errors, but don't keep making the same error, You're going to fuck things up your whole life. You're going to have, the only people that don't do that, they don't try anything. They don't do anything, they don't try anything. They have a dull, unremarkable life. And, and they might have a sense of pride of like, they'll laugh at somebody like me or laugh at somebody like you because we made a mistake about something, but they never fucking did anything. So I don't value someone's opinion like that. It doesn't mean anything. We have such different goals, it's unrelatable, But if you have the discipline to do, 5-minute mile is some effort, yeah? How many people can do that?
Not a lot.
Yeah. So if you have the discipline to do that, if you have that same amount of focus on a different task, and then that attention to detail, don't have to be any more complex than what you're talking about in the kitchen. It's the exact same, that structured way of thinking is the same reason that I pay respect to the engineers. An engineer knows that there's an order that thing has to be done, that there's a process and an order to build in something, and if you're going to build a fucking jet, you're going to go about it in a certain way. You're not going to add superfluous things that, he jokes sometimes, like you wouldn't fucking tape a shark fin on the jet because, well, this looks kind of like a wing or a rudder or something. Like, you wouldn't fucking glue a shark fin on the jet because, well, looks like it'd be cool over here. There's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. So, just taking on some of those processes of, I have an amazing finance course. I think it's great. I don't think there's a better one. 40% of the people in the room have gone through that course. And a lot of it's just running down that structure of like, how do you analyze a company? How do you read the financial statements? How do you think about a company? How do you know if something's a good investment or a shit investment? You know, when do we want to double down on an investment or back away from an investment? And just got to understand how the pieces come together. And I would just say to you, it's no fucking different. It's not much more complex than, you know, running a complex kitchen. If you could run a fucking an industrial kitchen, it's the same processes and sequences of, you know, looking at things, evaluating things, trying, you know, building a new recipe on occasion. Oh, tastes like shit. Oh, tastes like shit. Oh, less of this, more of that. Oh, now it's coming out pretty good. And, you know, you need a little bit of that experimentation, and after a period of time, you develop an intuition in the kitchen. I think you'd agree with that. After a period of time, you develop an intuition that you're just like, you know, oh, this, or, and, you know, you might have learned 4 years ago, well, this and that don't go together, but this and that thing might, you know, you could experiment in a more structured way, that you already proved to yourself some things that, well, these don't mix too good, and that don't mix too good. But you can put a little truffle oil on anything and spice it up and charge twice as much for it, you know? Add some flavor and charge twice as much because there's a truffle oil. So, I don't know, I guess the good news, or what I'm trying to say to you, is you probably already have some skill sets that you're not giving yourself credit for. You probably already did some tough things that, who else here ran a 5-minute mile? That sounds pretty impressive to me. Some other people. It's tough though, yeah. Yeah, most people don't do something like that, you know? So, and I know 4 minutes is like that was like the, you know, the elite thing that nobody did for years and years, and then several athletes did after they did it. But 5 minutes still sounds impressive to me. It sounds, you made a fucking effort. Yeah, you didn't do that in week one. You probably had to do a little training. Probably had to build up your cardio for a bit. So, a person that has that type of discipline, and, you know, all the same things that I said about the kitchen, that, you know, you're willing to experiment with a few things, you're willing to look stupid, you're willing to fuck something up, and pretty soon you start developing an intuition that you can do complex things rapidly that looks like magic to other people, but you know, you could get a consistent outcome doing complex things. And if you're missing an ingredient, you'd be like, well, what do we do with this? Oh, fix it like that, you know? Bing, bing, bing. Shift this, try it that way. Da, 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 da. And that's what a lot of entrepreneurship is, man. A lot of entrepreneurship is the same type of thing. A lot of being a good investor is the same type of thing. And you find a lot more money in that than working in a kitchen. So, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it's just the truth. You know, again, the reason a lot of these, you know, logic-based, nerdy type people come see me, because I'm one of them. We're the same type of people, but they like structure. They like thinking about, you know, structure and putting some order to things, and then the trap that they fall into, that you might have yet another advantage. The trap that a lot of those people fall into is an engineer. He wants everything on paper or on a computer program, and he wants to see, you know, before he does anything. An engineer is reluctant to do anything until he understands, you know, the next 200 steps. He wants to know the next 200, you know, the next 200 nodes in the flow chart. If this, then that. If that, then this. And a fellow that's doing what you're doing, you have that same process in your head, but you might not know what a fucking flow chart is or what a node is, which I don't mean in an insulting way. You might not be able to read that fucking diagram, but you already have it built in your fucking head, and you have the creativity that, like, you know, well, if there's no fucking, if we don't have the sea salt, if we don't have the fucking pink sea salt, we'll use the other fucking thing. You know, if you don't have this, we'll use that. We'll shift this. You know, if I got some fucking turkey breast, what am I going to do with it? Well, you know, I can't cook it this way. I could cook it this other way, and we'll call it that kind of turkey instead of this kind of turkey. And you know what I mean? Those little things that you have to have some creativity in what you're doing. And it's not more complicated to think through of, like, well, what's going on in the stock market? Well, you think of governments putting a lot of extra money in the economy right now. They're trying to fight inflation a bit, you know, in real time, dump absurd amount of money into the economy, and also keep inflation low at the same time, or at least say they're keeping it low with some semblance of credibility. And then you got to look around the world a little bit and say, well, what are the other countries doing? And you're like, well, what's their financial policies looking like for, for the euro or the pound or a Swiss franc or the Asian currencies and so on and so on. And so be helpful to think about, well, what do foreign exchange rates look like from one country to another? What are interest rates looking like in different places, which is a good indicator of inflation or the, the future value of their currency relative to what's going on right now. Be nice to understand how do futures work? How do options contracts work? How do commodities contracts work? What are commodity prices looking like relative to bonds, relative to stocks? And this looking at the different sectors is, what sector do you think oil is going to do better? You think the price? What do you think is going to happen in the oil industry and what companies are going to benefit or be shitty, or in tech, or in whatever the fuck it is, automotive manufacturing, or retail, or casinos, or whatever. And just being able to break down those pieces a little bit, and then to make it more relatable, pretty soon you start understanding, well, if this happens, then this also has to happen, and this has to happen, and that has to happen. And given the way those silly humans are and tend to behave, probably they're going to, probably I should invest in this then. And just being able to tie the pieces together a bit of understanding how the shit flows back and forth, between various markets. That's why I think it's utterly laughable when you see some bullshit on the internet where they're like, I'm a day trader, or I trade Forex, I trade crypto. This is, you can't do any of that shit if you don't understand how all the pieces fit together. You can't do anything like that. It's just a joke. So if you don't understand how the pieces fit together in the kitchen, it's like some asswipe in your kitchen saying, I'm a chef. I make side salads. So what else? I thought you were a chef. No. I make side salads. I trade crypto. I make side salads. I'm an investor. I trade crypto. If somebody only made side salads, would you call that a chef?
No.
Are they going to work at a Michelin restaurant?
No, that sounds like a job full of servers. Side salad.
Yeah, it's literally the equivalence. I trade Forex. Do you understand anything else about macroeconomics or financial statements? No, I trade Forex. It's the finance equivalent of I'm a chef. I make side salads. So well, that's not a chef. Okay, well the guy that trades Forex, well that's not an investor. That's not a financial professional. That's some clown that is about to lose his ass because he doesn't understand how the rest of the pieces fit together very well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So don't overcomplicate the idea that don't have it in your head because you haven't focused on it yet that you couldn't be a good entrepreneur. Don't have it in your head just because you haven't focused on it yet that you couldn't be a good investor. And I'm just repeating myself, but I'll just say it again. If you had the discipline to do some of the things that you did already, and you're able to understand the complexities that goes on in a hectic kitchen, it's hot, it's sweaty, people are bumping against each other, some of the ingredients are missing, somebody didn't buy the fucking thing they were supposed to fucking buy, and now you got to substitute some other shit, and the thing's here, but it's spoiled, or some asshole left the thing out overnight that they were supposed to put in the refrigerator, and all those things that happen. Well, that's an awful lot like entrepreneurship. It's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be pretty, it's going to be messy, it's going to be sweaty, somebody didn't show up today, it's business, you're sleep deprived, it sucks, and at the end of the day, it's your job to pull all the pieces together and make it work and make it look pretty anyway. Mm-hmm. That's entrepreneurship. If you could run a kitchen, you could run this other shit. You'd find some other business niche that you're good at. You got to learn a couple different terminologies, you got to learn some new language, and you got to learn how to apply concepts that you already know and you've already been doing. You have to be able to apply those general thoughts in a different context, and there's a lot more money there. And if you're serious about that Ferrari, I made a lot more than a Ferrari today. I made a few Ferraris this week in the stock market, literally. So I'm up 820 something, 828,000, something like that this week a little over 400,000 a day. It happens all the time. And, I have a lot bigger swings than that. And some of these guys, they're having similar experiences in life, So, oddly enough, some of us have similar portfolios. But, there's times, just to make that point, there's times, I don't know, a month or whatever ago, in January, there's a time I'm up $2.5 million in a day. And in the same day, about $1.5 million of that, 1.4 or so, went away. And the next day you lose another million. And the next day you lose another million. and you can't be in it. If you think you're super smart when just because the market's going up around you, if you tell yourself a story about what a fucking genius you are, for things that you didn't have direct control over, then you got to tell yourself you're an idiot when, the first half of the week you're a genius when the market's going up. Then you're going to feel like a fucking idiot for the second half of the week if it's going down, So you got to be in a pretty even mood. You got to be able to control your emotions and be in a pretty even mood. First you have to use your willpower to do that, and after a while it comes more natural to you that, I would argue, Travis spends the most time with me in person more than anybody else in the room here. And I would wager that you'd have a hard time, if you never looked at the market, you'd have a hard time knowing if the market was up and down just based on my moods, I'm in a very similar mood if I was up $1 million, very similar mood if I was down $1 million. And, I know at the end I'm going to go get more. I'm not worried about what happens this week. I'm worried about, what's going to happen over the next few years, what's going to happen over the next few decades. I don't give a shit what happens this week.
And this course really helped me find out what my goals are and how I should be working towards my goals, and who should be my right mentors, and who should be, what kind of people I should be hanging out with, what kind of peer group I should be having. Now that I'm only 4 weeks in the course, I think I've learned so much. I've learned so much that I can't tell you. There's a real estate course, so I'm doing all 3. And guys, I seriously recommend that you go for all 3 because you want to keep the momentum going. If you keep the momentum going and you have the same people that you're hanging out with again and again, you keep getting more knowledge and then you keep making more connections. I think connections is the most important thing, which will help you move forward in your entrepreneurship goals.
If you didn't like this video, please feel free to unfollow. My clients and I celebrate when the wrong person leaves our lives. But if you did like this video, if you're a person that's dedicated to success, dedicated to a better life, make sure you like and subscribe. I have a lot more to share with you. I look forward to seeing you at one of my live events in the future or as a client on one of my paid mentoring programs.